Okay, so now comes the fun bit. What we're actually going to do, just pop those off a minute, this is just the burner cans at the back. What we're going to do now is give this a complete weathering wash. Now the other thing I've also done is using a very fine sanding stick like I've got here. As you can probably see, it's got a thing. I've just given it a gentle rub over everywhere. Now the reason I did that, two things. One, it was a little bit rough to the touch. Not sure why, probably might have been stirred around a bit of time. Dusty was onto it, and then when I sprayed on top it stuck to it. But anyway, by just giving it a very light rub everywhere, all over it, it just tones it down and it's nice and smooth to the touch. And if it's nice and smooth to the touch, we'll get a nice finish with the weathering wash. The other thing it also does, by giving it a rub all the way over, it just keys it all down a little bit, takes the edge off the paint, just dulls it down a little bit, and that's what we're trying to do with this. We're trying to get a sort of a nice sort of mottly type colour. Now the blues have come back a little bit more radiant, but that's because it's obviously got the future on there. A couple of coats, as you know, it darkens it up. By the time we put a dead flat coat over this, hopefully it'll dull it all down again. Two things I'm going to do with it. We're going to go over it with the dark wash, absolutely everywhere, smother the entire thing, and then we're going to go around with it and pick out some black wash on some around the engine areas, around the gun bay, various things I want to do with that, around the wheel wells, and then we're going to give it some splattering effects all over it with some of the light wash to give it some sort of dark and light, look like it's been bleached. So there we go. We're going to start then with the dark wash. So let's grab a paintbrush, got a soft one here. So we'll start on the top for a change, and all we're going to do is just going to brush this and work it in to all the panel lines over the entire thing. Now you've probably heard me do this a million times before, but I'm not going to bore you to death with going through a full weathering wash with you. Obviously there's a 20-minute video on doing the aircraft, washing aircraft, and I think there's actually I think it's a bit longer, there's about a 40-minute one, and then there's a 20-minute one on doing armour as well. But what we're going to do is go absolutely everywhere with the dark wash. Okay, so that's everywhere with the dark wash, and it's off. So as you can see, it's got, you know, obviously a bit glary there, but you can probably pick out very nice panel lines on there. Pretty crisp, very sharp looking. So what we need to do now is sort of slightly dull them down a little bit. So a way to do that is just to take a little bit of your light wash, like so, and like we got here, and a little bit of your dark. And just grab a brush, he says. Looking for a brush. Here we go. There's a brush. Let's just clean that out. All we do, we're just going to come along and we're just going to touch in the middles of panels, bits and pieces, not too much over the actual panel lines, and just going around with a little bit of light. And what it will hopefully do, it will just get into the texture of the paint a little bit that we put on there, and it will just dull it down just a little bit and give it a slightly bleached look here and there. So we just go all over it, and then we just start to dab around just like that, and then take a little bit of the dark wash, okay, and just drop a few drops in the middle, so you sort of make a light type of grey, if you like. So then you can just go around, and what we're trying to do is not obviously flood the entire area, but just to certainly give it a sort of mottling type effect. So we just go everywhere with the light and dark, just like that. Certain areas on metalwork I would leave it a little bit darker. Just pop around little bits and pieces, so we just got a bit like that. Grab a bit of the light and just pop all over it, just like that. Go around. Obviously the easiest way is to make another dish and mix up a little bit of light and dark together. We just do it the quick way, really like this. A little bit of dark. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes now, so as you can see you've got the light and the actual dark grey sort of specks of the weathering, and hopefully this will just tone it all down and take it from being that sort of sharpness to sort of a bit more sort of muted down. Usual thing, we're just going to lick and moisten a cloth and give it a rub round everywhere on the entire fuselage. Usual thing, getting inside little tight areas, things like that, cotton wool buds, any little problem areas, but as you can see on this wing already we've sort of dulled it right down. It's not as quite as strong and in your face as it was before. So I'm just going to carry on going all the way around now, taking the wash off of the rest of it. So as you can see, we just fitted the undercarriage, and in there. So what I've actually done, I've tapped it in place just with a little bit of super glue, and then I've actually gone with a liquid cement just to plug it in. You've got these little pin ones that go from the fuselage to the leg as it runs down, so I've just put them on with super glue just down in there. So they're on the inside, quite fiddly little ones to do. Same with the front one, I've just got to do the underside of the leg here and paint that in. Because at the moment it's in the grey, because I sort of sprayed it up with the rest of it. But we're all on there. It's all a little bit soft, but we can give it a whirl at trying to get it up onto its feet and make sure we're all okay and happy. Yep, it's all a little bit wobbly at the moment, but what we can do is have a look straight down it nose on and make sure all the gear is how it should be. Now the rear gear actually leans slightly forward. I don't know how well you can actually see that, but it actually slightly comes forward. You're not actually 90 degrees down in the vertical, they do come slightly forward, and then the nose gear as well does the same. So we've just checked that and it is all fine. Yeah, I'm happy for that. So what I'm going to do now is leave that on its own to really dry hard in that nice position, because looking down it we're all square, everything's nice. So we're going to give it a good sort of half hour for it to start to go off, and then we can start doing the other little bits and pieces to it. Okay, so there we go, we're all on there. It's on its gear, it's quite steady these days, still a little bit wobbly there. I think that's just the length of the gear, but it's going to be one of those ones where you're going to have to protect it if you're moving it around. But you say, wash is nicely dulled down, gear is on, so what we can actually do is fit the gear doors. Easier to get on now than it is when we start getting the pylons and bits and pieces in there like that. Obviously we said they're all sprayed nicely red on the inside, that's just flat red. And then all we're going to do is go round and we can secure these in. So we can either put them in with a drop of super glue, or you could use your normal sort of, glue you want to use. So if we just get the lid off of this, do it one-handed. Going to do it with a cocktail stick. So what we'll do, we'll just pop a cocktail stick and we're just going to dab these corners just for a moment. And then obviously we can tuck these in and we just hold. In place. Now obviously you could use a bit of kicker. If you just hold it for a few moments it'll go off. There we go, something like that. And as I say, it's a bit bright under there, but what we can do is weather that up afterwards. Then we can come along and do the rears. Just put a drop more in there, just to guarantee its hold. So we'll just put too much. A little bit in there. A little bit into the rear one. And obviously you've got the fatter part to the front, the thinner to the rear, which feels a little bit odd. You can just put those in and hold them there just to go off, and we'll just go around everywhere and do the same with the rest of it. Okay, so we got those on, they're all in there like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to get the cans in. So I've put the back ends in, painted them silver on the inside. You've got a little tab for the bottom, so I've already just dropped a little bit of super glue in there. So they go in the bottom. Just make sure they line up. When they line up, the tops just push in, just like that. So same on the other side. There we go, that's both of those in, just like that, a bit of tissue there stuck to those. So that's that in. So really, we're to the point where we're almost all together. That what we've got to do is just still got to paint this front little leg area there, but you can see it's really sort of coming together now. We've got all the various parts sort of springing to life and getting there. So we can just put that down. The other thing we've got to do is get the rudders on. Now this is one of those things where artistic license sort of comes in here a bit. But what I'd like to do is somewhat offset them slightly, just so it draws the line away. We've dropped the flaps and the bits and pieces, so what I might do is just come along, make sure you've got your left and your right, and you can put them in, and then just give them a little kink, perhaps like we've done there. We've just turned that one in, and we'll turn this one out. Now I'm not sure if they do, so what I'm going to do is not fix it in position, and that way, when I get corrected that they never move in real life, will be okay. But as you can see there, we've just got them flicked out just a little bit, just to make it look a little bit off even, if you like. I know certainly US Navy jets, they tend to move around a little bit, but I'm not sure about flankers, so I'm not going to glue them in place, and that way we can obviously just position them as and when is needed. Okay, so we've got some of that green, just got a dribble of it left over. It's a bit thin, admittedly. I've got some in the cup there, but it's enough to hopefully just hand paint in this part just down here. So we just run this on the top, and it might need a coat or two to get this to work, and it runs down the sides of it as well. So we'll just bring you in a little bit so you can see a little bit more. You can see we just got to do the inside area here. So we just load up the brush a bit and just dab it down, just like that, into the inside. And we're sort of just flooding it slightly so it sits on there quite nice, but that's that area done now. Okay, so you can see we're basically into the final stages of it all now. So if you're happy with that type of finish, and you know, let's face it, it's a very nice finish, it's dulled down, we're all okay. But what we've done, you know, by putting these extra layers of paint on, we've really lost all the pre-shading that we've still got a little bit on the underside, which gives us a little bit of sort of tonal change and various bits and pieces like that. So the way to get around that is to what we call post-shading. Now, there's various different ways of doing it. A nice easy way is to use something like Tamiya Smoke X19. Now X19 is a gloss, so it's going to work a bit like a gloss versus over a flat type of finish, but what it really is oily colour. It's not a black, it's not, you know, obviously a clear, it's somewhere in between the two. So it gives you that nice way, if you can put it down quite a lot and you're not going to worry too much about it. But you just have to be careful where you apply it and how you apply it. When you're doing your pre-shading, you can almost sort of spread it around and squirt it everywhere as you want to go and not really worry about it. But with this, you know, obviously it's going to go over the top of your decals, of all your nice finishes and your bits and pieces that you've done, so you have to be a little bit more careful to the area you get to. So what we're going to do, we're going to pop it into our airbrush. We're all clean, happy here. So what we're going to do, we're going to just put in our thinners first. So we can use Tamiya thinners we've got here, or you say you could use any other thinners, but I would use a thinner rather than a water. So we just grab some of that there, and we've probably put in there about 1 mil. Okay, then we're just going to tip in a little bit. Now all we've done there is probably about 1/2 mil into that, because we want it to be very watery. This is very watery anyway looking, but we want to make it look even more watery. So we can do that thing of blowing it around, and if we do go wrong, it doesn't really make that much difference. If I spray some out, as you can see here, it's not a massive black colour, so we can spray round over it. Now because we've thinned quite heavily, what we want to do is keep your air pressure up quite high, because we want it just to blow on. We're going to do nice steady movements and then move on to the other side. So we're going to start on the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to put some down this leading edge slat just here. So what we'll do is just going to come along and put it down, and then we'll move away. Because it's a gloss and it's very high air pressure and it's thinned, if we hang around too long, we run the risk of getting runs or blobbing and bits and pieces like that. So obviously you set it up how you're comfy. We're just going to get the compressor on, so we're nice high air pressure all the time. Happy with our flow, and then we're just going to follow the panel line and make 2 passes, 1 up, 1 down. Just like that. And then we're just going to do the back, the line, and this back one, just like that. Then what we'll do, we just pick out some of the little panelling and bits and pieces. And we're going to do some little weathering lines going backwards off of these panels that are on the top here. We're just going to go back 90 degrees and flick up as if there's a lot of dirt coming off of those areas. So almost like you've seen me probably do on the other ones, where you get a gun stain running down. So we just do this panel here, Alright, and we'll just put some running down the back. Just like that. So what I'll do is we'll just turn that off a moment and you can show you what we've got and we can compare the two. I have to be a bit careful. But there you go. As you can see, we've got the weathering on here versus the other side's quite clear. So if I bring you in just a little bit, you can see the difference there. Obviously you've got a slight weathering going on, a dirty look to it, things like that. Obviously on this side over here we're still nice and clean. So I know it's a little bit hard to see in the light because obviously it's dealing with gloss and it's quite a shiny surface, but as you can see it just dulls it down and gives it that little bit of weathering, as you can see, like that. So what I'll do is I'll just run around a few extra panels for the moment with you there to show you what I'm doing, and then we'll run around. Now, usual thing, this air pressure is probably 35 psi, quite high. This is a 2mm needle, nothing flash, nothing, you know, over the top. So but just take your time as you go over, and if you can't see it going on, don't worry, because you're not really supposed to. This is a subtle effect we're going for and not a heavy line. So we're not trying to, like we are for appreciating, we're literally just trying to go around, and this just acts like a little bit of weathering. Just like that. So as you can see, we've got down the sides done, but it's just giving it a little bit of weathering as we go round absolutely everywhere. Okay, so there we go. That's all the weathering done. I don't know how well you can actually see that, the reflection on it, but it just tones it down, gives it sort of a dirty, warm. All we're trying to do is really just keep dampening this down, dampen it down, sort of bleaching it out and weathering it, and that's the idea behind it all. And as I say, we've got it on the bottom as well, and giving it that sort of nice edge. So one of the last things to go on now is all the weapons pylons. Now they've already been pre-washed and pre-done and pre-weathered, and they basically straightforward going to go in the holes. Now a nice little technique to this, if you get yourself a small, like a watchmaker's Phillips head screwdriver, and you pop it in the holes and you give them a twist, you'll round off the tops. So if you've come in from the other side, you make a little raise, and when you go on you don't get a nice flush fit. So if you go along and just give them a little bit of a twist, you just countersink the outside of them and it gets all rid of all the rough edges, and you'll get a far nicer join between the two. So we just do this to all of these, and then you come along with your particular pylon that you're actually after, and literally it will then just come along and we can stick those in place just like that and go along with them all. And then afterwards, if you wanted to, you could arm it, you could just leave it in the pylons. It really depends on how you go. So we're going to get these all fixed on, and then we can come around then and give this its final dead flat finish to go right over to finish it off. Okay, so now we're over in the spray bay, and as you can see, nicely weathered but a bit shiny at the moment. We want to dull this right the way down, especially the underside, still quite shiny and reflective. Now that's great for obviously where we've been doing decaling, weathering, washing, things like that, but now we want to just tone all that down. Various ways of actually doing it. You can just go over it with a normal sort of flat coat and then sort of 50-50 mixes perhaps you do, or the other way you can do it, so what I'm going to show you here is what I call a dead flat coat. Now for this one, obviously there's lots of different flat varnishes on the market, but this is my own personal choice. It's the Extra Acrylics Flat Varnish. It's made by Hannon's. This is the bigger bottle, which works out a little bit better, which is XAFF. So what actually happens is, give it a good shake as I've done before. I've got about a quarter of a bottle left here, and then what I've done, I've let it stand for the last sort of 5 minutes. The reason for that is all the heavy bits will fall to the bottom, and in a minute we're just going to come along. If we'll just fire up the compressor, to get it right up to high pressure, because we want this to be maximum. So just turn your regulator up as high as it will possibly go. And then when you're taking off the lid, you want to be careful you don't get any bits drop down inside. Okay, and then just very slowly tip it over, because we don't want any heavy lumps. If you see a lump fall through, then stop. Okay, and that is just neat in there, just like that. So it's straight from the bowl, that hasn't been thinned at any point whatsoever. Just pop the cap on, and we'll pop that up over there. Now we'll flip the extractor on, because it does get very dusty. So then all we'll do, check your flow, and it should have a hard time doing it. And all we do is dust over a coat. Now, I don't know if you can actually see it already on the camera, but dulling down, but as soon as you come anywhere near it, it'll dull down. So we'll just go all over it like this. Things you have to watch out and be careful for: if you're suddenly seeing white spots, what's happened, there's a lump in there and it's managed to get through and it's spitting out. Because we're doing this very, very thick, if I show you here, you might be able to see on the end of the needle, behind the camera, here we go, if you see on the end of the needle there, you might be able to see like a lump. And all that is literally just the build up on the end of the needle. So we just give that a wipe off to keep the needle nice and clean. Otherwise what will happen is it will build up on the needle like that, and then it will spit it out. So then all we'll do, just turn this around. But as you can hear, the airbrush, I hope you can hear, is really struggling to pump this away. So let me just put that in there. As I say, I hope you can see no more shiny reflectiveness. You're going to get a little bit, but obviously, you know, we're under a lot of light here. So all we'll do, we'll just whip this over onto its back. We'll just carry on dusting it everywhere. Just every now and again cleaning off the ends of the needle, and you can hear immediately the air spray, and the airflow is a lot higher because it's being able to get it through. There we go, we've just run out and used a colour cup to do that one. So if we just flick that off a moment, and that can go off down there. And there we go, one flat flanker, or with any luck, one flat. Okay, so there we go, we've been drying for about an hour. So it's all touchable now. It's pretty rough now, but that's what you get for a dead flat finish. It really is completely dead, and as you say, no matter what angle you sort of look at it, there is no shine whatsoever. So what we can do now is the old moment of truth, and we can start with the unveiling around the cockpit actual area. So what we're going to do is very carefully prise it off. And bearing in mind, it's been on here quite a while. So we're just going to take it easy. Let's try and get this off. So we'll just give this a rub. Now with the kit itself, you get some photo etched parts for the mirrors and bits and pieces like that, which we'll pop on in a minute, which is quite nice. So what we'll do, we'll just use another bit of with the actual blue tack, we should be able to pull it all off. It's just because it's literally been on here quite a while, so it tends to stick in. But there we go, that's off like that. Then we can go around and clean up some of these areas, but sometimes I do like this sort of darkness you get where the wash sort of rolls over and bits and pieces like that. So there we go, we just clean up the actual bits, and then if we get a knife, where's my little knife, here we are, if we just get the little knife, we can just hook up the around the bottoms and roll it over. Now obviously we've probably got little bits of wash in there and other bits and pieces, so we can get those off as well. Just shut that window a moment. Crash. It's very, very windy today. So anyway, let's just hook that off. So as you can probably see, you actually get, if we just move this one out of the way. confused. We get these sort of dirty marks running down here that we need to take care of. So the usual thing, if you just get a cotton bud and give them a wipe, you should be able to polish them up quite nicely. Just like that. And there we go, we just finish off there, we just give that a wipe around. Obviously round underneath and all the bits like that. Then we get the front one off as well. It's the same thing, literally we just put a knife under a corner. You might be able to see me do this a bit more. There we go. There we go. So we just pop a knife under there and roll it round. There we go. There's the front part. I'm happy how it's all sitting as well, the glass work, because it can be a bit of a pain to get it all round. So just give that a wipe round, just like that. So as a bit of a test fit, there we have, looking very flankerish with the cockpit and the glass work done now. So the final parts really that are going to go on is all the aerials and bits and pieces. So there's obviously two ways you could do this. We've got the sprue here. You could either go round now and paint them on the sprue, which is what I intend to do. Things like the actual the needle on the front, the nose, it's going to need a bit of work to clean that up because it's quite big and flashy, and all the other ones. So you can go around literally and pick out them and do them silver on the sprues, most of them, and then literally let them dry. Then when we're attaching them, we can use a little bit of super glue and just sort of plonk them on. The weapons themselves, well, what can you say? They're a bit big, they're a bit chunky, as they are in real life, but unfortunately the fins are very, very thick, and there's there is replacements out there. You could go out and get replacements, or you could poke these on, or as I say, you could just leave it as is in the weapons bit that we've done. This one is looking very nice. So really it's personal choice. What I am going to do, I'm just going to stick a few of these on and do them as a loose fit, and then that way at a later date you could always change over the weapons if you wanted to with some resin replacement ones, or with photo etch fins on there to thin them out. But they are a little bit big and chunky, but they're not over the top. They are big missiles anyway, but it's just one of those things. So we get that silver work all painted up.